I find like I can be inspired by something like the Rwandan genocide that happened, and that those images or those events will be what moves me or stirs me to write something. But then when the poem comes out or the piece comes out, it's not necessarily a poem that is anything to do with the Rwanda genocide. Like I might just capture on one emotion, like howling pain, or the color of black lost in the darkness, and maybe that line takes me somewhere else and takes me somewhere else. So I'll come up with this poem that might turn into some kind of like Celtic fairy fantasy piece, but really I got the inspiration from something like the Rwandan genocide.
Finding evil to create goodness, right?
Yeah, or something.
Because inspiration is a river, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the river just like makes its way through whatever space it needs to go down. And this is the nature of inspiration. It doesn't happen within a realistic space. It just happens. It's a river, and it will cut its way through whatever space.
Yeah.
And so, it may have started somewhere, but it flows, and it will erode, and over time, right? And then this is like, very typical kind of understanding of how inspiration works. But I really believe that it inextricably ends up in the ocean. And if we look at the occult, for instance, right, and you look at how water is a symbol for emotion, right? And so the ocean is, of course, the deepest expression of emotion. So when you have this beautiful river that flows, from this like terrible place, because quite often inspiration comes from a terrible place, and down through, slowly building and widening until it becomes this like crazy Nile, 1 mile wide, and and it hits the ocean. And it's like it comes home, and that's the nature of inspiration. I think that sometimes there is no control. It's just the lay of the land.
Sa quarters, wala na yung quarters natin.
Julie said earlier, and Julie, I'd like you to comment to this after. You said earlier that some of your most amazing inspirational moments came from places where things were dark.
For me, it's like when I'm happy and maybe I have a partner and I've got a really cozy home. I don't really ever feel inspired to do something artistic. I might be more inspired to like cook a good meal and vacuum and clean the bathroom and buy a bouquet of flowers. But in terms of like writing or doing any art, I'm totally uninspired. And it's almost like the second I let myself feel the pain of a breakup or a strong loss, boom, I'm doing comic strips again, like I've got funny one-liners coming out, and it's just, it can be going and going. And I think, I don't know. And I think it's all about people. I think just different people are inspired by different things.
Yeah.
And that's why we have all those really happy love songs. I don't think I could write a happy love song to fucking save my life. I'm reading a Neil Gaiman comic, Ted, and I'm reading The Sandman, and in it, that's what happens. This man captures his muse, and this muse is passed down from one great writer to the next, and she's supposed to be free, but because she's been captured, she's captivated, and anyway, there's this big fight for her, and the Dream Lord comes, and he's like, why are you holding this muse? And the writer says, because I want ideas. I need the ideas from her. And as the Dream Lord's revenge, he plagues the man with so many ideas that he goes crazy. He's just like, oh, I have this idea, and this idea, and this idea, and he's a raving lunatic. And then eventually he realizes he needs to release this muse in order to be sane again, and then he goes back to having no ideas. So I think that's what Ted's trying to say with the idea of this river overflowing. It's like when you do feel like inspiration is just going right through you, and you're just like, go, get it out, make some kind of note about this.
Wow.
And so,
I'm afraid of lack of rain.
Yeah.
It really scares me.
It's
I
trust.
want rain. I want the rain to fall on the land and to flow into my body and to rip me through down to the ocean. That's what I want.
Then you have to trust that it will.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't always happen that way.
In order to be inspired, there's so much that I feel like you have to let go of. And if you're not in the right spot for inspiration to get you, then your inspiration is fucking wasted. You can still get that same piece of inspiration, but if you're not willing to see where it's going to take you or trust that it is inspiration, and I do this all the time, you end up just like, for me, I end up writing like some really shitty line that gets me nowhere. It gets me into some kind of like I'm rhyming cat and bat, and that's all God. It's not even funny. And it's like, oh, it's because I thought too much about where this inspiration came from, or something like that anyway.
So thinking, right, that's not inspiration. That's self-expression, which is different from inspiration.
Yeah.
Inspiration is the river, whether you like it or not, Alex.